I am being followed. Don't take it personally if I'm always looking over my shoulder. I'm frenetic. When I'm out at dinner, my eyes dart. When I try to explain my situation, nobody believes me. But it doesn't change the fact of the matter. I am being followed. This is all true. A number of years ago, I began to catch traces, small but certain, of my follower. Let me set a scene. It's 2016. I'm in a grocery store in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Fred Vegas, we called it. My cart is heavy with beer and Cheez-Its. I roll down the aisle and begin to hear footsteps falling behind me. They are nearly perfectly aligned with my own, but just syncopated enough that a keen ear could distinguish the sets as different pairs of feet. They are accompanied by an uncanny, otherworldly scent like old motor oil or an electrical fire. It was not the first time that I've heard these footsteps or smelled this sharp perfume. This time I think I will catch him. I step again, the syncopation builds, more steps, old motor oil. He's right behind me. All of a sudden, I turn on my heel, my finger extends to an accusatory point. You! I'm about to scream, but the word dies on my lips when all I see is an old woman picking up beans at the other end of the aisle. He had already escaped. When I turn around to face my shopping cart again, my heart skips a beat. He is devilishly planted among my provisions, another 12-pack of PBR. In my disorientation, I decline to put it back in the fridge. The years pass. I download countless applications to my phone, accepting 1 million terms and conditions without reading a single term or condition. I move to Kentucky. I become a member of Amazon Prime. I TA my first class, digital mapping. I defect from Apple Music and subscribe to Spotify. My grandfather gets sick. I drive to Virginia to visit him. My old white Ford truck has windows you roll down by a plastic handle, old school. I-64 is dead empty in mid-November. As I'm entering the National Radio Quiet Zone, a familiar smell flares up, old motor oil, electrical fire. I hear a tapping from the truck bed and check my rearview mirror. There's a figure, a body that bears an uneasy resemblance to mine. It has crawled along the bed of the truck and managed to roll down the manual hand crank window from outside of the car and is now crawling inside. In a frenzy, I start to shake my steering wheel back and forth, but he's already halfway through the window. Then we hit a massive pothole. It bounces the truck 3 feet off the ground. It's only at this moment that I realize I'm doing 95 and a 70. The shadow figure loses his grip on the window, hits the ground, bounces a few times before scampering off the highway into the woods. And then I see the red and blue lights go up. I take my foot off the gas, pull over to the shoulder. You'll never believe what happened, officer. I've taken to calling my shadow man the Golem. As best I can discern, my Golem was created by an evil, eldritch force, likely a sorcerer, who uses non-traditional ingredients in Golem anthropomorphization, such as bits and bytes, instead of traditional ones like mud and clay. Naomi Klein, a philosopher of golems, has argued that sorcerers use digital data to create our real digital doppelgangers. Quote, not the aspirational avatars many of us consciously create with those carefully curated and filtered photos, but the doubles that countless machines create with the data trails we leave behind every time we click or view or fail to disable location tracking or ask a smart device for anything at all. Naomi Klein inspired me to quit my job in favor of chasing my Golem full time. You can imagine the complications that this has introduced to my personal and professional lives. It's disorienting to commit so much time trying to catch someone who's following you. There are days when I wake up and wonder if our roles have been reversed. If I am trying to catch my Golem, does this make me his follower? Is it possible to pursue something that haunts you without transforming into the very thing you intended to catch? I'm afraid that when I finally rip his mask off, I'll only find myself staring back at me. But I know that these are intrusive thoughts. I shake them off and return to the chase. You all are wondering what I do all day. Let me tell you. My methods are mostly French. I employ a tactic called dérive. It translates to drifting. I move through everyday physical and digital spaces, seeing what I can see, noting what I can note. Two seasoned drifters named Jim and Craig have described this method as, quote, not leisurely. They are correct. It is hard work. Jim and Craig have also said that while it's possible to drift alone, groups of 2 to 4 people are often the most fruitful. I suspect this is true, but I have no way of knowing because I have never drifted with anyone unless you count my golem. 2 years ago, after nearly a decade of searching, I finally found the sorcerer who made my golem. He was hiding in a limestone crag in the dark zone of the largest cave system in the world, which is incidentally around the corner from us in Kentucky. I will not admit here what I offered the sorcerer in exchange for information about my golem, but he accepted it. When I left the cave, I hauled away an awful, ungodly pile of data. My golem leaves so many traces. To a reasonable person of sound body and mind, the traces make no sense. One must speak a forbidden incantation to decode these unearthly markings. Some of you may know this ancient phrase. Through a Herculean effort, and at no small cost to my own good health, I've managed to plot my golem's movements on a map. For the first time, I could see how he moved and where he went. Here, I turned the places that he visited into circles so I could intuit the magnitude of his travels. My golem apparently is American. You will also see that my golem is a Euclidean. He moves only in straight lines, taking care to ignore the appropriate social conventions of the material world. In this map, his pink means his older trips and white mean his newer ones. It is unfortunately only possible to reconstruct my golem's travels after he makes them. I have not yet devised a method for determining where he will go next, but rest assured that I'm hard at work developing advanced computational methods to facilitate this prediction. I'm going to call these techniques political economy. The data I received from the sorcerer only dates to late 2023. At that point, I started retracing the golem's steps, visiting each stop the golem had made, starting from the very beginning. If I hoped to catch him, I would need to learn everything I could about him, starting with where he'd been. Conveniently, most of these places were also places I had visited. Now, during these travels, I started to find scraps, refuse, and other bits of thrown-out rubbish, which some might call garbage, I would call archives, that my golem had left behind. As I picked through the scraps, I noticed that some of them contained what I have authenticated with a great deal of effort as journal entries written by my golem. I've chosen a small selection of these to share with you today, each paired with a map that highlights the location at which the journal entry was discovered. These journals are significant for understanding my golem's psyche, but before I read them to you, I must issue a warning. In these journals, he writes in an exceedingly human voice. His sentimentality, fear, desires, and so on may give the impression that he is as real as any one of us sitting in this room. You must remember that he is not. My working theory is that my golem has planted these journal entries as false pieces of evidence to suggest that I am in fact the false creation, while he is the real one. Do not succumb to his deception. His greatest trick is to describe me in precisely the same language that I use to describe him, which is to say he calls me my golem. When I read you these journal entries, you should understand that my golem is me, but the real one. Some of you may find this turn of phrase alarming. Please be assured that I am in fact the real me and not a golem. Even if he believes himself to be the real one, he is a false creation. Now let us proceed. I have arrived at something called first choice heating and air conditioning. It's exceedingly sunny in the outskirts of Tacoma, but my golem is nowhere to be found. A woman named Darlene asked me if I had an appointment. She asked me if I needed my filter replaced. I panicked and ran away. It turns out my golem has never visited Washington State. Now I'm going back east. He's evaded me again. 10 years now that I have been following my golem. He remains full of mystery, except for one certainty. He is always on the lookout for a Wawa. He stops at Wawa all the time. The back seat of his car is filled with the debris of long-gone Wawa sandwiches, snacks, and coffee cups I don't understand. It is just a gas station. Some days he will sit in the Wawa parking lot for hours. I wonder what he is doing in the car, but I'm afraid to look. I feel drawn towards my golem. All the same, I fear him. My golem is a geometrician. He moves through the horse capital of the world in triangles. Sometimes I wonder if he knows that I am mapping his movements and is playing some cruel trick on me. I think about the concept of a Sierpinski gasket, the fractal form of an equilateral triangle, which can be recursively subdivided forever into smaller triangles. I fear he is sending me into an infinite loop, at the end of which I will simply be staring at myself in a mirror for eternity. 3 times a week, my golem appears to visit a clandestine restaurant called Geo Pizza. A frightening man named Matthew Zook appears to be this establishment's proprietor. The restaurant has decent reviews online, but I can find no trace of it in the physical world. All I can find here is a classroom building which has been ominously named Classroom Building. I want to help him, but I fear once again that my golem is up to no good. My golem has gone off the map. My golem is in the ocean. I traveled for days over icy salt spray, whipped weak by the December winds. It takes me all night to arrive here, but my golem is nowhere to be found. I'm writing from a buoy in the middle of the ocean. I have heard some people call this place Null Island, but the name tag on the buoy reads Station 13010, Seoul. He has gotten the best of me. It's been 2 years since I began drifting. How much longer? I'm cold and I'm hungry, but I cannot deny that it is beautiful out here in the water. That's all.
Thank you, Ian. We have a working microphone here. Any questions? All the way in the back. I'll meet you in the middle. Oh, you're good.
Would your golem pass the Turing test?
I don't know if I'm at liberty to say, but yes.
Forgive me if this question is far off of where you are, but here it comes. I'm thinking about all my projects, and I'm thinking about you thinking about your projects, and also the presenter just before you, so maybe it's a question to both of you. What's so great about this session is that we're talking about how we give ourselves permission to do work that is motivated by curiosity and skill and interest in a world where there's relevance and irrelevance converging in all of our spheres of active practice anyway. So you give yourself permission to do this thing, and then I'm thinking about your golem metaphor as like your life at work and your life beyond and through work in that longer term. And I just wonder if that explanation of what this is all about resonates for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's great. It's sort of, this was really inspired by for me at least, two things. One was Naomi Klein's book, and the other one was Jim and Craig's book, Data Power. And in both of those works, they talk a lot about surveillance and this sort of sensation of feeling like you're always twinned. And so I think that happens in all sorts of ways in my life. One of them, between your work and your personal self, et cetera, but especially in the sort of data doubles that get created as traces that you leave behind through the world. And so that's one of the things that I'm thinking about, but it definitely overlaps with what you're saying. Yeah, thanks.
Another question. All right, there'll be time for more questions at the end. Andrew, you can get